So I'm back with another video for you finally. This time I'm going to be using some Resin Recreate as opposed to Resincrete. My last video was on Resincrete and how much fun I found it, and I wanted to try some alternatives. So I have some aquacasts which I'm going to be doing another video on another time. But I wanted to try this Resin Recreate, which I found on Temu. I wanted to see if this cheap Temu alternative was as good, if not better, or worse than Resincrete. So I just bought a small pack. I don't know how many grams it is. I think it's around about 400. It doesn't say on the packet. It's the same ratio as Resincrete, so it's 100 grams to 30 grams by weight. So I wanted to make a couple of trays, and I know roughly it's about 200 grams per tray. So I've got my equipment here. I've got my measuring cup and 2 molds, just Trinket trays, a decent weighing scale for good accuracy, a large container to mix it all up in, and I've got some little shards left over here from previous projects, which I've sort of cracked up from the cups from previous projects. So you can see there's a bit of black, a bit of red, a bit of white, and there's a little bit of teal in there somewhere as well. So just crack them up, and I used like a heavy tool there to crunch them up, and I'm going to put them in. I can't remember what the name of it is, a special name for this kind of style, but I want to mix them in, and then I'm going to sand it down and buff it up, and you should see those colours come through. I'm not going to add any pigment to this mixture, just going to keep it as it is, white, so those colours show up. So I'm going to mix it all up, like I said, about 400 grams roughly, for 200 grams each for these Trinket trays. I've got some water there. I'm using distilled water. You don't have to use distilled water, I just happen to have some. So I'm going to measure out some water. So it's a 30 grams of water per 100 grams. So that'll be 120 grams of water to 400 grams of the powder. Now I believe it's the same ingredients, this powder. It's not anything different as far as I'm aware. There's no actual documentation with it. It literally came as it was. The packaging is almost identical as well, it's just different wording. So it could be, as far as I know, made in the same factory. Who knows? So I'm just measuring out some 120 grams of water here. It doesn't have to be absolutely spot on perfect, but because there's a bit of flexibility there as well, depending on the temperature of the room, things like that. So once that's measured, I then measure out some of the Resin Recreate. This is an eco product, an eco resin, been quite popular. You've got Jesmonite's been around for quite a while. Like I mentioned earlier, Aquacast is one in here in the UK. I've just bought a big bunch of that, so I'm going to be doing some projects with Aquacast. And I'm looking at maybe doing some projects coming soon which involve creating some of these products using this eco resin, but also engraving it with a laser. So I have my Glowforge videos, as you may have seen previously, and I want to try creating some pigmented products using this eco resin, and then engrave on them, so to see how the detail comes through. I've seen a few videos, not many, there's a few videos out there using Jesmonite. I've been doing some research into the safety side of things, because obviously with engraving you have to be very careful. You can't engrave or cut certain plastics, for instance. So I want to double check. So I've spoken to manufacturers to find out about the safety of these things, and I'm waiting for confirmation, and then I'll go ahead and do some projects with that. So I'm just measuring out the last bit. I've got this weighing spoon here. It's got a little digital measure. It's not brilliant, but it does give you a rough idea so you don't scoop out too much, to get a more accurate measurement. Yeah, just over 400 grams there. It's not a major difference. So I'm just adding some water, a bit at a time, not the whole lot in one go. And I'm slowly stirring it in, a bit like you would with your mixing flour and eggs and things like that. You just add it bit by bit, start mixing it around. Some people add the powder to the water, do it the other way around. I add the water to the powder. I don't think it really matters, as long as the ratios are accurate as possible. You see it's kind of a gloopy mess right now, but it does go a long way. This ratio of water to powder the powder is very thin, so it does break down and become a nice smooth, almost like a pancake mix, I suppose would be the best way of describing it, like a pancake mix, once you've added the correct amount of water to it. I actually had a little bit of water left in the cup, and I felt it was already quite runny once I'd mixed this amount. I had left that tiny bit of water in there. Again, there's that flexibility there. I've had a bit of experience with this, so you kind of judge things by your previous experience, and I knew that I could get away with leaving that tiny bit of water. So I'm adding these little broken parts. I can't remember the name of it. Should have looked into that first. But yeah, just these broken bits, shards of dried up Resincrete from previous projects. I'm adding them together. I've got, like I say, red, like a grey charcoal colour, and some a little bit of white, and also there's a little bit of teal in there as well. So I'm mixing it all in, just doing it slowly, bit by bit. Interesting to see how this turns out, because if it turns out exactly the same as the others, as Resincrete and the other ones, and it works just as well, and it's just as well bonded and strong, and comes out with a nice finish, and it's a good cheaper alternative, then it might be a good idea if you want to just practice and play around with these things first. So I'm ready to pour. Time to get organised. Now what I'm using under this black mat you can see here is I've got a couple of heat mats. These are just things you pick up for your pets, for an aquarium for instance, for a reptile or something. So I'm using them. They're underneath the silicone mat there. And I found that when I'm doing resin work and things like that, it helps to speed up the curing process by using these mats, because it's not too hot, but it just helps to speed up the process a bit. Now the curing time for this is very much like the Resincrete ones, where I'm sure it's 30 minutes to be able to demold, but about 24 hours for it to be fully cured. So I'm just pouring a bit of it into each one, not filling it up just yet. And what I want to do next is just go in the little grooves around the edges of this Trinket Tray design. I'm using a little tool there, just a silicone tool, just to make sure that all the little broken parts, all the little shards, and all the liquid is getting right into those grooves properly, and there's no air bubbles trapped there. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but if you just push this tool along the grooves there, just to make sure you're helping any bubbles come to the surface. Some bubbles will naturally rise, some you have to force out. So I'll do this, and I'll also give them a tap as well. Move them around a little bit. Helps to push the air from the surface of the mould up to the surface of the liquid, and then you can pop them. Now it's time to top up the moulds with the rest of the Resin Recreate. I'll get my tool there and I'll just scrape off any leftover residue and pour that into. It was just about enough just to get it to the right height on these moulds. I've had to push them together because one of the moulds was slightly out of shape. Just how I bought it. These are also Temu moulds. I got these from Temu, very cheap. Giving them a tap here. The heat mat is heating up. You can see the liquid is very soft at the moment. You get a bit of working time with this stuff before it starts to harden. Not too much time though. I'd say 7 to 10 minutes depending on maximum, but depending on the temperature of your room. It was quite warm on this day. I'd say about 26, 27 degrees. So I wouldn't have had much more time. I mean, the residue in the container there dried up very quickly after this part of the video. And there we have it. So we'll leave that for about half an hour before demolding. So it's demold time. I've sped this sort of part of the video up a bit more. The demolding and the sanding and the preparation and that sort of thing. but I'll talk you through it anyway. So here we are. Sorry about the focus there, but it's come out quite nice. It's you can see the colours of the shards there, but they're a little bit muted because obviously they're sunk slightly below the surface. They're not all prominent. They're not sitting at the very top of the surface. So by sanding it down, you can reveal and get closer to those pieces, and you'll start to see, as you can see on the video now, it's already showing a bit more. Now I use some alcohol wipe here, some 99% alcohol and just a cloth, just to wipe away the residue, the powder, and you'll see how much those colours, those shards shine through. Again, apologies for the annoying focus problems with the camera. It should get into focus. There we go. You can see there's a few bumps here and there from where it was slightly uneven at the top, but sanding that down will reveal the colour, and it's quite a nice effect. Now you can start off with quite a strong grit and work your way to a more fine grit as you go along. I would probably recommend wearing a mask while you're doing this as well, because the powder's not great to breathe in on your lungs apparently. So it's an eco resin, it's meant to be safe for the environment, but I still wouldn't want to breathe that in. As you see more and more as I'm wiping the residue away, the dust away, it's revealing more and more of that colour. It's not as muted as before, but it's still not quite there yet, and that will come. The colours will pop out even more once it's been waxed. And here we are. So they're all sanded down. It's not perfect still. I haven't gone down to a very fine grit, but it's sanded down, and the more of the shards are at the surface of the trinket tray. The grooves there, they're a bit difficult to get into. I didn't go sort of too crazy with it, but again, apologies for the focus there. We're back in focus now. So this is where it can really make a difference with the colours. So using this stone and concrete wax, this is Clark's stone and concrete wax. It's a nice smell, orange and lemon. This was recommended. I know other creators have used this and recommended it as well. This was recommended on via Amazon. I just found it on Amazon, and it was recommended for anything to do with stone, so I bought some. Just using a microfiber cloth there, just going to rub this on, and that will really make those colours pop out. That also forms a nice barrier of protection, depending on what you want to use it for. This is porous, this material. It's not completely waterproof, so the idea is to waterproof it a bit. You can buy Aquacast have their own solution you can spray. You can buy concrete waterproofing spray. I bought some of that as well, but this wax will work well as well. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it necessarily for food, but as a sealant. I've made another one of these previously and used this wax for my washing up brushes, and it works really well. So you apply that, let it dry, give it a wipe over, and I'd probably do a couple of layers of this, do another coating once the first coat is dry, maybe even 3 coats, depending on, again, on what it's used for. If it's going to be used for something that's going to have a lot of moisture, again, focus problems, but you can see those colours popping out now, much clearer, much less muted. Some of them are still muted because they're still way below the material, the actual Resincrete material. But the ones that are on the surface are really popping out now, so I'm really pleased with it. It came out really well. So this is the second one. Again, right in the grooves there, the corners, a bit more difficult to sand those down properly. And I'd take a bit more extra time with some smaller sanding pieces, maybe like a nail file might work. But I'm still pleased with how the colours of those shards are popping through. And because they're made of the same material, they're very easy to sand down. So all in all, I was quite pleased with this Resin Recreate. For the price, it was worked the same way as Resincrete. It works in the same way as Aquacast, which I will be demonstrating in future videos too. As for how long it lasts and how strong it is over a period of time, I'm not too sure, but I'll give it a thumbs up. Here are just some photos of the final piece once it's cleaned and buffed up a little bit more. You can see a few chips here and there. That's just where air bubbles came through. But it serves a great purpose. It does its job. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found it informative. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks for watching.